Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
I'm doing well, thank you. How's it going over there?
Good. Excited for the year. I think the Corona coaster is easing here, so we're in a good space, and guys are keen to get going business-wise and health-wise. So we've seen a big uptake in the last probably 2-3 months.
Very nice.
Nice. You're always so well dressed, Steve. Thank you for dressing up today.
Pleasure, Brian. How are you, Brian? How are you doing, Christal?
Doing good. A little
Excellent.
bit. We've been a little bit overworked here at the shop lately. Obviously, a lot of business always during the holidays, and
Lately.
still we're building out our new warehouse and a new retail location, running up with some license or what do you call it, business compliance crap, regulatory crap, but we're working through that, fire inspectors and all this stuff. But we're really excited. We're moving our marketing and retail space and our customer service over to there, and the goal is actually to turn our Instagram Live into to publish it to YouTube and make it more of a podcast, make it more syndicated. Mm-hmm. So we've got big plans this year, and of course we're doing everything we always do. All the big shows we're going to this year. We'll be at South by Southwest in 2 months. We're going back to the biohacking conference that will be in Beverly Hills. We're hoping to go to the Optimization Summit in London, but that keeps getting delayed. And the picture in Europe, it just seems more and more dark and dismal and horrible. So we probably won't be going to that, but we'll see. We have products in development that we'll be releasing this year. Some cool new stuff coming up, and more than anything else, trying to scale our production and everything else. So we have a big, busy year ahead of us for sure.
Absolutely. How about you, Dr. Stavs? Anything new going on?
Well, look, at the end of the day, Made to Thrive is growing nicely, which is sort of the corporate wellness biohacking company, and the podcast is gaining some real traction. So, yeah, we're in the top 2% of all podcasts worldwide. We've had some incredible guests on, and products are starting to gain traction in sort of very naive green market here in SA. But we're building a nice team. I'm bringing someone else on, so we're going to have quite a few health coaches, and the South African Society of Integrative Medicine is adopting more of the health coaching side, and including others in terms of the community cure that different practitioners bring to people's lives. So excited about what's happening in the health space. I think a lot of people have health foundations have been rocked a little with the pandemic, and starting to put some more resources and finances into their health. So we're excited.
That's so awesome, Steve. I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, would you tell our listeners and stuff about your podcast and about Made to Thrive as well? Like what do you do down there?
Sure. The podcast is the Made to Thrive show, and really it is just combining a lot of experts and people in the different areas of health. Interviewing cardiologists. I spoke to Dr. Jack Wolfson. I must actually send you the contact. He's in Colorado, and he's a really good cardiologist who's married to a wonderful chiropractor who got him onto being, I think, one of the most prolific natural holistic cardiologists in the whole of the US. I had a good chat to him for the second time. And we interview people and really distill and deconstruct a lot of the complexity of health into very simple, actionable steps. So, I always speak of my why being to inspire and empower people, in terms of living a thriving life that includes your spiritual, mental, emotional well-being. So, that's the podcast, and we've got 40% of our listenerships actually in the US. So that's really cool. And we got a lot of people reaching out to us now. So we had one of my sort of teenage heroes, Dr. John DiMartini, reach out to come on the podcast, which was, fantastic when one of your heroes reaches out to you. So, we're gaining traction in Africa, and we've been on national radio as well. And some of the podcast guests, in South Africa, the health doctors are really excited about the podcast and educating people. So that's the show, and we're going to got some ideas to mix it up a bit and do some sort of community forums out there in real life as a podcast, similar to what you guys are doing, some discussion, some open question discussions in the podcast. So yeah, that's it. Made to Thrive. There's going to be 9 of us at the end of this month in our team, and the services are growing, and consulting's growing, and coaching's growing, and yeah, we're adding products to our sort of repertoire, and hopefully we can change more people's lives. You know, it's about transforming people's lives, and rather than what we call preventative healthcare, rather than sick care, which is the traditional model that's out there.
So you're providing health coaching and health education, but it's not just in South Africa, right? It's the greater region.
It's the greater region, and that's where, you know, we've got to look and say, how can we be grateful for the pandemic and what it's done? Well, it's created a
grateful environment. You're gonna have to explain that one, Steve.
Yeah, well, what can we be grateful for? You know, there's always something to be grateful for, Brian. And what I'm grateful for is I've got clients in the US, and I've got patients in Europe, and I've got people in Mauritius, and I've consulted with people in Australia, and so the world has become smaller in many ways where people can reach out. Our services are very affordable, and I think our expertise are quite high because of the rand, which is our currency, and the dollar exchange. It makes importing products expensive, but it makes exporting services, you know, very affordable. So that's what I'm grateful for, is that I think our voice and our coaching and our consulting has grown significantly because of, you know, the lockdowns and people getting online.
And are you guys still dealing with that some of that lockdown stuff, or I know that it's South Africa's fault that Omicron has infected everybody. I don't know if I'm grateful for that, but no, all jokes aside, are things back to normal? Like, people are out in South Africa? Give us a sense of things, because we're kind of insular here in the US.
Look, what's really good is, you know, there were 5 levels of lockdown, level 5 being the strictest the first 6 weeks from March 26th. We're now in level 1. So there are some restrictions in place, but, you know, it's really just using the mask in public spaces and not big gatherings. So people are starting to move freely. I just came from a coastal holiday, and people were on the beach and very relaxed. What's really been good is Omicron has every person I almost know closely, patients and clients, has had COVID and has not had serious sickness or, you know, disease. So the hospitals are quite empty, which is really, really good. People are getting COVID, and they're coping really well. And with our low vaccination rate of only about 30% in this country, it seems that we've got a very, very good sense of natural immunity or herd immunity, because natural immunity being far more superior than vaccine-induced immunity. And that's, you know, that's the research and been confirmed by science on both sides of the anti-vax and vax communities. Not that I like to define.
And without getting too political at all, let's go into that a little bit. Like, why would natural immunity and naturally acquired immunity, this idea that you are harnessing the body's own built-in systems and developing and optimizing the immune system in that way, you know, what is that science and that research? Let's talk about that. Like, why would that potentially be equivalent to vaccine acquired immunity, if not,
or better,
or maybe better?
Oh, look, I'm not a specialist in terms of, you know, epidemiology, but I had Dr. Peter McCullough, cardiologist, internist, and epidemiologist on the show, and he's been testifying at the U.S., you know, Senate, as well as multiple Senate states and that. So the bottom line is, you know, vaccine-induced immunity, from what I understand, and basic and simple, is, you know, your body's responding to the spike protein alone. If I have to give you a sort of an analogy, it's only seeing one part of the elephant, where if the elephant is in its totality, when you get the disease, your body and your immune system recognizes the entire elephant. So there are different parts of this virus that your body, when you do get the disease, can recognize and then respond accordingly. So, you know, there's multiple sort of thinking on this. Last year, some papers came out saying that your natural immunity is up to 27 times more effective or resilient against COVID if you've had it, compared to vaccine-induced immunity. the bombshell that was thrown out by Peter McCullough and the CDC was that you cannot get COVID twice. It is impossible to get COVID-19 twice. And this went on the Joe Rogan podcast. I interviewed Dr. Peter McCullough the day before he went on the Joe Rogan podcast. So there's some things that are coming out from the CDC that came under, I think legal pressure, Dr. McCullough was telling me. And so it's interesting to see that he's basically saying natural immunity is infinitely better than vaccine-induced immunity.
That's fascinating.
So like, let's go into that. And of course, there's a tie into SaunaSpace and sauna therapy and light therapy. Let's get to that interesting science behind natural immunity. If it is better, if our own built-in intelligent protective systems and immune systems are, if that's the way to go, then how do we optimize that? How do we harness that? What can we do to promote natural immunity?
Yeah, look, and I think it comes down to, the 7 pillars that we've sort of distilled at Made to Thrive. And, people ask me, I finished 23 years as a practitioner and physician here at the practice. It's over 5,000 working days. I've never missed a single day's work ever to sickness or ill health. So I take my immunity, very seriously. And, why do we do things is the big question. Why do we ensure that we've got good circadian biology? Why am I in my SaunaSpace 6 days a week? Why do I use Photobiomodulation? And these things are incredible, parts of our lives, biohacks and lifestyle changes. But why do we continue doing them? Well, there's 2 major reasons that we look at Made to Thrive, which I think are fundamentally important. And one is, do we have a purpose? Do we have a purpose to waking up? Do we have a uniqueness that we can bring to the world, just like you bring to the world, Brian, in terms of what you bring in through SaunaSpace, helping people, changing people's lives. You're waking up on a Monday excited to go to work. Maybe if there's a few more challenges, not so excited, but you're waking up on a Monday excited to help people and change people's lives and serve people. And so when people have a purpose, if we look at the Blue Zones, they wake up with what they call an Ikigai. And Ikigai is that Japanese term of waking up with a reason to wake up in the morning. And so purpose is one of the pillars that we talk about in terms of, immunity and natural immunity, because you've got to get up and use your gifts, your talents, your abilities to serve other people, to serve yourself, to serve your family, to serve your friends, and then to serve the greater cosmos, the people that you are serving in terms of your business and your life. So purpose is the first thing that I say is probably the most important in terms of, why we continue with our life, why we say no to the donuts in the morning when everybody else is saying, why we, ensure that we've got the right body composition. There's reasons to why we are internally motivated. And I think purpose is one of them. And the second is community. The pandemic has taught us, who is your community? Who are your closest people that you can call 2 o'clock in the morning when there's chaos or there's an emergency? Who are the people that know your birthday, your kids' birthdays, that celebrate life with? And I think that's been lost, is we need to be able to take our purpose and serve people, our multiple communities that we have in our life. And that's the foundation of the different, areas of health. Now, photobiomodulation and SaunaSpace, that's a huge deal in my life. It's a huge deal in my family's life because it's moved the needle. It's changed my life significantly. It's transformed my life significantly. So, I think that's a quick summary without going into the whole philosophy of Made to Thrive.
Right.
No, but that's so beautiful, Steve. It reminds me of some of the talks and educational pieces of Jordan Peterson. And he's himself a controversial guy, but I was intrigued by a lot of his focus on the need for purpose, particularly for men in Western society, certainly for women too, but for men in particular, it seems like the sense of purpose has been lost a little bit. And what is the purpose of being a part of to being here? What is the purpose and the point? And he ties it into community. So I love how you've mentioned exactly those 2 things. The truest purpose a man or a person can have is to be a net contributor to his community or her community. and there's really no greater purpose. You know, your life is the sum of your relationships. All this material stuff that we keep getting focused on in the West, it doesn't bring us happiness. And yet such a simple thing of waking up and dedicating yourself to a purpose, to a goal, to a mission, to that serving people in the community, it brings so much benefit, not just in a theoretical, spiritual sense, but very much in a physiological sense. We feel good, we feel happier when we have purpose, and ultimately that purpose is, you know, it's something related to contribution to the people around you in your community, your family, your friends, and your actual community by extension. I think that's so important to have that mindfulness. We actually had, Steve, on Tuesday, we had Dr. Walls on.
Yeah, all that.
And it was such a great show. We talked a lot about mindfulness and knowing yourself. And if you're sick, which most of us are, knowing your pain, knowing yourself and understanding.
Listening to your body.
And listening to your body, listening to your pain, and finding that. And part of listening to your body is listening to your mind and your desires and your doubts and your anxieties, and working through that to develop that sense of purpose. Because once you have that, once you find that thing, you can just see that in people's eyes when they walk into the room and they're on a mission. They know what they want, or they know what they're pursuing, and there's an energy and a glow from that, and definitely a connectedness, and that's really infectious too. You know, you are with whom you hang around. So if you hang around with bad apples that are irascible and negative, you end up kind of becoming that negative, irascible, bitchy person yourself.
Well, and it's good to remember too, I think, part of mindfulness is to acknowledge those anxieties and things, but not to dwell on them. To just notice them and let them inform, you know, what you're doing, but not to dwell on that, and focus more on the purpose, more on the what can I actually do here.
Yeah, it's so important to recognize that purpose and community matter, because it's not just getting up and doing your SaunaSpace, doing your photobiomodulation, taking a run, eating a healthy diet. It's not enough. You have to have that presence of mind, that mindfulness. Everything flows from that. You can't just do what your doctor told you and necessarily get well. So I love that piece. But having said all that, there are some gadgets that do help you find that purpose, I think, and find that clarity of mind to help assist you in your journey towards wellness and towards improving yourself, improving your body and your mind. And I think SaunaSpace is so cool for that, because so many people are just sick and unhealthy and have a lot of brain fog. If they're not have neuropsychiatric symptoms like depression and anxiety, or just indecisiveness, like they're stuck and they're apathetic and passive. And for example, you can sit in your SaunaSpace sauna, and through detoxification, through correcting and developing what Dr. Walls referred to as cellular resilience, cellular optimization, you can, that can assist you in clarifying and understanding, well, what is my purpose? What do I want to do? Who do I want to help?
And it's a quiet space that's enclosed. You're not visually distracted by a lot of other outside things. And then if you have the Faraday, you're additionally protected by the EMF shield, which blocks out all the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which, unless you experience a state where you don't have those influences, you don't notice them. It's kind of like you don't notice gravity because we're in it constantly. But if the gravity suddenly went away, we'd all be like, whoa.
Yeah, and yet it does damage us, because it's not a temporary stress. It's not an automatic stress. It's an unending, ubiquitous, stress all the time, and it wears us down. It's like, people who smoke cigarettes, people who chew tobacco, they do it every day, so their body gets used to, or their body is working hard to detox the toxins that are coming in at the time, so it doesn't deal with any higher order or deeper toxicities. But if that person then quits chewing tobacco or quits smoking, there's an immediate visible physiological detox that happens in the gums and in the lungs, and the coughing, people hack up mucus and stuff. So your body gets stuck. Your body, the analogy I'm trying to make is that you get used to the EMF stress, and your body and your mind try to deal with it as best it can by just dealing with and ignoring it. But if you enter a space that's EMF free, or you've had that experience before, you do feel quite the difference, and it gives your body a break from that stress, and it's quite shocking to the body, but the body gets excited and it responds, and it definitely heals faster. It definitely re-optimizes it better without that EMS stress on the body.
Yeah. I can't remember, Steve, did you start out with the Illuminati that doesn't have that shield and then move on to the Faraday, or did you have the Faraday always?
No, the Illuminati to the Faraday, and that's I think of Ryan Holiday and Stoicism, because he's got an incredible book called Stillness is the Key. And he talks about the Stoics and how important it is to have times of stillness and to have times of mindfulness, as Dr. Walls. And I've been following Dr. Walls for a long time, because you talk about purpose, someone who came from significant pain, disability, disease, and is really now just the trumpet call in terms of a physician who can speak about the different modalities and use natural medicine and use the food and the photobiomodulation and the SaunaSpace. So someone's gone from serious pain to purpose, which it's incredible. But the stillness that you feel when you're in this EM free zone is incredible. Radiation for some people, like all stresses, can be significantly detrimental to certain people and not so on others. So the people that are really sensitive do really well by limiting their electromagnetic radiation. And that's, as a geobiologist, I studied in Australia in 2019 and became a geobiologist because I needed to assess this, very similar to Brian Hoyer, to assess these fields, electrical fields, electromagnetic fields, high frequency.
Let's, Steve, why don't you try to answer this question, being as you started with the Illuminati and you now use the Faraday. So Therablaj asks, how long do we need to be in an EMF-free zone to really feel the difference? Is it really something we can feel? So if you would please try to answer that, try to articulate to us, what is that feeling? What is that sensation? Is it noticeable? Is it all,
Yeah.
Look, I think there's many variables there. Is number one, I think EMS affects the neurological system more than anything else, and so I think there are many people on the spectrum where you've got a stress that causes oxidative stress. Martin Paul's got all these studies on the oxidative stress that electromagnetic radiation causes, and the calcium channels that open and calcium that gets flooded into the cells. So there are thousands of studies on that. Now, certain people are going to be more sensitive to others. It's also the electromagnetic soup that you put yourself in. I feel that if I've had a day in the office when there's a lot of Wi-Fi, I'm in a medical office here, I've got a lot of people, and I've been in the soup, and then I go in there, wow, there's a significant difference, and you almost go through a detox process. So that makes a big deal. But if I've been outside all day and I've been golfing, or I've been running, and I've been outdoors, and my phone's mainly 90% on airplane mode, I haven't been on my laptop, then I don't feel it as much. So the time period is based, I think, on your day, on your week, and then secondly, on your biology is, how do you respond to, these waves? I think everybody responds to them differently. And I think,
I think people do. And I'm glad you brought up, people who have neurological issues tend to be more adversely affected by EMF stress. So the reason for that is because the voltage gated calcium ion channels, the sort of the vehicle, the thing that's affected by the EMF signal, the highest concentration of those in the body are in the heart muscle and in the nerve tissue. So if someone has, for example, someone who has MS, they're already dealing with excessive oxidative and nitrosative stress to their central nervous system, and their own body, because of inflammation, is basically become neurotoxic. It's toxic to their own nervous system. So those people they already have this load of oxidative stress that is already manifesting in these weird nervous-based symptoms. And so those people, they absolutely are going to be more likely to feel EMF stress more significantly, or be more adversely affected, whereas a healthier to notice it more. It's so we're kind of dancing around the question, but basically the way I would describe it is, when you go, even in the beginning when I was developing the Faraday, walking into a grounded Faraday space feels really quiet to the senses. It feels really calm in a strange way. And then the more you notice
it's like going and standing on a mountaintop alone, where that feeling of calm and quiet you get just in your whole body, compared to when you're standing on the city street.
Yeah, there's a release that happens. I think for me is psychologically, mentally. It's I'm finally in a completely relaxed state here. It's something that is really hard to describe, and definitely people feel it differently. But I know with like in Steve's example, other people's example, people who have Illuminati, had a regular sauna, and upgraded to the EMF shield, upgraded to the Faraday space. There's pretty much every one of them say there's no going back. They could definitely sense the difference. So it's just something where you have to try it out for whoever that was who answered the question. But you can definitely feel it. Your cells feel it. They are adversely affected by this. It's something that's growing and becoming a new silent spring, kind of a new environmental toxicity issue that is leading, I think, to a lot of disease, a lot of long-term, long-tail disease development.
And if you reach out to someone like Brian Hoyer of Shielded Healing, or many other providers all over the world, they can help you reduce the amount of EMF within your home, which reduces your overall load and helps your body just be in that relaxed state more.
Yeah, and so you can mitigate stuff, but actually if you're talking about sauna, it's like, okay, well, I can protect myself and minimize my EMF exposure, but can I actually heal from the oxidative stress
while you're still experiencing it?
And the answer is yes. Sauna is a unique vehicle that via various sort of cellular pathways reverses the peroxynitrite typical oxidative stress that EMFs cause. And it does so through tetrahydrobiopterin production and vascular shear stress. But here's a way where we're not just stuck with our disease and our toxicity. Even if we get a lot of EMF exposure, if we can do a sauna several times a week, or ideally like Steve 6 times a week, we're continually maintaining that, reversing that disease pathway. We're fixing things constantly. So
it's a slow damage and erosion. I would say
it's something where it's everywhere you go. You can't avoid it, but sauna is an amazing vehicle for protecting yourself from it and healing from the damage that it causes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think one area that that possibly I can shed a bit of light on is patients with a lot of anterior head and neck pain and conditions like trigeminal neuralgia. And I've been probably lecturing on head and neck conditions and temporomandibular disorder for 20 years. And what we're finding with the increased cell phone usage and having this device right here, it's really affecting the nerves. And so I see the photon there. It's something that I've recommended to my clients and patients, and something that I do in the sauna specifically. Not that I'm on the phone a lot and I use a cable and that, but many people have their cell phone right here. And the nerves that come out here are significantly in their size, in their function, can cause significant pain as well in terms of the muscles of mastication. So, I get patients to use photobiomodulation right in this area because these nerves become very sensitive to cell phone radiation. And, speaking to Dr. Dominic Nischwitz, who's a biological dentist in Europe, that if you've got a implant, a titanium implant or metal in your mouth, when you use your cell phone, the research and the science has shown that metal can increase by 4 degrees centigrade in its temperature. So it heats up with the electromagnetic radiation. Now, that's where we can use photobiomodulation in SaunaSpace, especially in an EMF-free zone, to help heal those nerves that are really, open to a lot more of the radiation. Your head becomes like an antenna to a lot of these waves.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and furthermore, a review study that I read recently, reviewing all of the studies that examine the connection between cell phone exposure and cancer. It reviewed about 800 studies or something, and guess what was the most common type of cancer associated with cell phone use? Of course, it was head cancer, and the second most common cancer was or the first most common was brain cancer, and the second most common was other types of cancers in the head, which is directly related to the proximity of the exposure, really, and the duration of the exposure. And we talk on our phones, but also we were at the
carrying them in your back
pocket?
Well,
so at the biohacking conference, when Dave Asprey was talking and doing one of his keynotes with Dr. Mercola, a sort of an EMF thing, he mentioned that he thought, well, I don't want to store my phone next to my gonads, next to my jewels, so I'm going to put it in my cargo pocket in my pants. And he would carry his cell phone in his cargo pocket for the last 4 or 5 years. So Dave Asprey said he did bone scans on his femur bone, and in that area versus the other femur bone that didn't carry the cell phone next to it in the pocket for many years, he had like a 30% reduced brain, 30% reduced bone density.
Yeah.
So no matter where you have it on you, it's destroying that tissue. And of course, you know, you could probably survive longer without your leg than you can with your head, but all of it matters. So all this stuff is all about cumulative exposure, and it's really problematic. And, you know, in the head, you have nerves and you have your big brain, but it adversely affects your vascular tissue. The cell phone signal and the oxidative stress over time causes actually gene expression changes that de-optimize how your cells work and take care of themselves. And I mean, you know, how do you have the connection between, and this is very speculative, right? I'm not a healthcare provider, but we're looking at the studies and we're looking at it and we're trying to see the connections ourselves. Why do you get cancer when you just have a cell phone signal that heats up your tissue? It's because there's more than that. Our bodies, our cell systems are electronically controlled in the micro level and in the macro level. And this unending microwave signal is slowly but surely like destroying everything, the nerves, the immune response in the cells, the vascular system. It's destroying everything. So it's really problematic, the whole situation. But again, sauna to recover, and also photobiomodulation. Photobiomodulation, and we talked about that a little bit with Dr. Walls on Tuesday, but we've explored it a lot in the last year and a half, Steve, because of the focus on immunity in the pandemic, and the focus that the pandemic has brought on natural immunity, which is kind of where we started this conversation. Photobiomodulation is so powerful for correcting immune system function. It's an immune modulator. So photobiomodulation, it upregulates the anti-inflammatory responses, the anti-inflammatory mechanisms, and it downregulates, so it slows down pro-inflammatory production, system production, and it in general restores optimal physiology. So photobiomodulation, this fancy word we're using, is just the use of near-infrared light to heal and repair degenerate and dying tissue, and also it has a reoptimizing effect on healthy tissue. So the simple use of light, so interesting, has really amazing effects. It was originally just used for pain relief. Photobiomodulation, it was used for wound healing and like pain relief, but then we start to realize over time it just has this really interesting optimization effects that are activated by the mitochondria. The mitochondria is this really important actor in your cells, this intelligent actor that does healing, it corrects gene expression, and then it has these higher order functions where the mitochondria in the cells somehow are helping the organ and tissue level systems work better.
And protein refolding and all these other things.
And you get protein refolding from subtle, from heat shock protein response from the heat therapy. So,
Steve, do you have a suggestion for Bird Mango on what can we do with our cell phones if we can't carry them in our pocket and we don't want to use them on our head? What are our options to limit that exposure? I think obviously
95% of my time it's on airplane mode, and when I come to the office, I will check it and connect to the Wi-Fi here. So most of my friends and my wife and people that need to contact me through either WhatsApp or some, because I think Wi-Fi signals are far less damaging, according to me, than cell phone. When your phone is reaching for the tower, especially when it comes to 5G, I think there's a lot more damage. That's just a personal opinion that I have. And I
No,
think
but there is some
research to back that up.
there is some evidence to back that up. So Bird Mango, what Steve is saying is he puts his phone on airplane mode, which shuts down all cellular microwave signal, and then he enables Wi-Fi. So he's only using basically close distance. This has to do with what he just mentioned, near field versus far field signals. The cell phone, like he said, you have to connect to a tower many, many miles away. So the signal strength, the wattage of the microwave signal that is pumping out in order to connect with that tower and maintain fidelity, especially if you're doing something high bandwidth like watching YouTube or watching video.
And your phone actually, it's not just passively receiving these signals, it actively reaches out for those signals. So, you know,
so that pulse wattage, you can really reduce your exposure and still use your cell phone by going to airplane mode, enabling Wi-Fi, and then using things that are Wi-Fi enabled, like on the iPhone, it's iMessage, it all works on. You can talk through Wi-Fi calling and so forth, or WhatsApp, and you know, you can do all the application type stuff you would do on your phone with the cell phone off. That's one great recommendation.
Second one is distance is your friend. So distance. So if I do speak, I always try and keep the cell phone away from me and put it on speaker. So if I can do that, and I can put it now, it's sitting in one of these Osmo, you know, nimbles, and so distance is your friend. You want to keep the cell phone as far as you can. I mean, the research is emphatic on this and unequivocal that if the closer we are to your face, the more you're going to absorb, you know, any type of radiation. So keep it as far as you can. If you can't, there's
what about wired headphones? Versus...
So yeah, I'm gonna take a guess and say that you don't use AirPods or AirPods Pro, Steve.
No, not at all. I mean, if you want to, you know, absolutely concentrate the radiation, you're going to be doing that. So, you know, using these things, if you want to use them because you're a runner, you've got to use them infrequently, or you want to do sports with them very infrequently because you're concentrating the radiation. And then,
but
you
especially the earbud in the ear, you know. Bird Mango asked another question that's relevant here, Steve. We need to answer this too, because a lot of people have these devices and these gadgets. She's asking about the Apple Watch. So what about the Apple Watch? That's not next to your heart. It's not next to your head. Is that okay?
No, look, I mean, all these devices, I'm a biohacker at heart, and I try and use these wearables as least as I can. I used to wear the Apple Watch many years ago when it first came out, and then I became a geobiologist and realized you've got radiation, you know, that's right on your wrist now. And if you look at Chinese medicine and the pulse and all the nerves that goes through there, because I'm a physician of Chinese medicine, you're basically putting radiation right into an area where there's huge neurovascular bundles. I don't think that's clever at all. And I think, you know, the average American, the research shows, has 13 Bluetooth devices. So if you've got 13 Bluetooth devices going on from, you know, different parts of your life, you're going to increase that radiation significantly, and putting it on your body as a wearable should be something that you use, you know, minimalistically. I'm a runner. I'm a long distance runner. I've run 40,000 kilometers in the last 27 years. I love running, but my running watch is just on when I'm training, just to get the data, and then it comes off. You know, I don't use it to count steps anymore like I used to and have it the whole day on, because you can't put it on airplane mode. So any of the devices that I use...
Yeah, there's...
So the Oura Ring is a great option there if you want to have airplane mode and tracking at the same time.
Yeah, there's some workarounds, Bird Mango, but, you know, everything comes, like Steve says, it's with a grain of salt. There are some limitations. Like, you can use the new Apple Watch totally in airplane mode, and it would have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi off, and you can track your O2 and your heart rate variability time and stuff. But... you know, a lot of the functionality and the other things, you have to turn Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on to have any connectivity to the app. Like the Oura Ring, for example, has a airplane mode that you can put it in, but then you have to take it off and recharge it and take it out of airplane mode, you know, in order to connect and get your data.
But it won't turn off airplane mode until it's on the charger, so it's still not on your body when it's doing that, at least.
But yeah, it is kind of a trade-off. You have to have the wearable tracker on to get the data. Right,
especially real-time data.
Especially real-time data. Like, you know, a lot of people want to wear the Apple Watch to see sleep, you know, see their sleep metrics and their quality of their sleep, but it comes at a trade-off. So, unfortunately, it's not a good idea. But
no, it's not a good idea, especially the Apple Watch. You know, it's much bigger. There's a lot more radiation. You know, the Aura Ring, I've been wearing it for a while. I only wear it at night now and then. I've already got the data. And, you know, the advice I give to my clients is get the data that you need and start becoming aware of your body. Just exactly what Dr. Wall said. We need to become body aware. These wearables help us along our journey, but they're not there to almost like a crutch to know exactly what's happened. And then if we have a bad night and then all of a sudden our REM sleep's not up there, then we don't do what we need to do. Because, you know, I think it's more about, as human beings, understanding this human body rather than technology invading in our lives and telling us how we should often act in the day based on the data that we receive.
And I was just thinking too, when we were talking about the watch, you know, you were talking about because of the bundles of nerves here, but you know, your wrist, you put it on your knee, it sits on your stomach all the time. You go like this when you're thinking about something, like and it's usually your left wrist, which is over by your heart. And I'm just thinking like, geez, you're wearing that the whole time. You're just moving it all over your whole body.
Well, and a lot of people actually have a cellular enabled Apple Watch for the increased convenience of that, where they don't even need their phone. It essentially is a phone, and it's receiving, you know, 5G signal, and you can use that independent of the phone. So a lot of people are walking around with their phone on the wrist. And when I was growing up, that was going to be that was going to be the future, Steve. It was like Star Trek, man. Like, and yet, unfortunately, this wireless technology is really problematic for our health, and we need to figure out how to navigate that because our culture's totally wedded to it now, and it is everywhere. And we have literally the what's called the C-band of 5G is rolling out in the United States right now. So first they came out with the first 5G was the increase of the 4G wattages from like 800 megahertz to 2.2 gigahertz, and then they added in the millimeter wave band, which is 27 gigahertz. That's for mostly between the towers and locally, but it doesn't have a lot of distance that it can go. So they have this new creepy thing that's called the C-band, and that is
a millimeter wave.
It's high. It just bridges the gap between the short distance and the long distance, and that's only rolling out now. And it's so powerful that they have been in discussions with the FAA, that's the Federal Aviation Administration, and they've AT&T and Verizon have agreed to not roll out any C-band transmitters into like 50 different airports in the U.S. because they think it's so strong that it's going to disrupt the ability of planes to land and take off, because it's going to disrupt their instruments, because these new signals are so powerful, basically.
Right, and if it's disrupting those instruments, can you imagine what it's doing?
Yeah, like what effect?
Your brain and your heart.
What effect does it have on human biology? So I'm just bringing that up because it's here. It's a part of our world now, and we need to be aware of it, both in minimizing our exposures and also trying to heal from it, from the damage it causes.
And Bird Mango, I love your comment here. Gosh, I feel like walking off into the woods and living safely with Sasquatch. But it's not about getting rid of everything necessarily. It's about adjusting, using airplane mode to its best effect, reducing, only using those wearables when you actually need to track something instead of all the time.
Yeah, and Therablosh follows up. He or she says, so rather listen to your body than rely on tech to tell us what's going on. I think that's what Steve's saying and I'm saying. That's what everybody's saying. The wearable tech gives you a direction and it gives you some indications of things, but once you understand the source of your toxicity, the source of your issues, you kind of take it from there.
Right, yeah.
Without having to log and track everything all the time.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I'll use my Oura Ring periodically. I don't wear it all the time, but I'll wear it for like a week just as a check-in in airplane mode, because it lasts about a week in airplane mode. And so I'll wear it for a week, and then in the weekend I just download it, and then I look at what happened this past week, and then I can think back like, this stressful thing happened this day, and then I could see how that affected my sleep and stuff. And
yeah, well, we should mention
actually. To do that all the time.
There's not a reason to do that all the time, but when you're trying new products out, or you're trying new therapies out and new protocols, it is nice to have some data to have some empirical support for how you're feeling better or thinking better or whatever benefit you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually, Steve, this is a new thing that we just rolled out. We now include 3 months paid access to the Heads Up app with the SaunaSpace purchase if you spend $1,000 or more, which is essentially if you buy any of our saunas. And it's a cool app that allows you to connect your wearable tech data and track your sessions, but particularly there's a customized module in there that is customized for a SaunaSpace session. And so it makes it really easy for SaunaSpace users and customers to record their sauna session and take notes and have that diary, but then be able to also correlate your sauna sessions with the data you're getting from your Oura Ring or your Fitbit or your Apple Watch, so you can see the benefit that you get. So we include that 3 months, because I personally don't wear wearable tech and I don't use it, but I know that in the beginning when you're trying something new, it's so fascinating to see that data and see your heart rate variability and your quality of your sleep improve, after a sauna session, like we're talking about this in theory, it actually, you can see it. So I just want to make you aware of that, remind everybody else of that. We just rolled it out. It's literally just rolling out like this week, but we're basically doing that because I believe so strongly in the product, but I also believe that it's really valuable to see some data as well.
Well, and PDX Soul mentions a couple of companies here in the comments that offer clothing and accessories that block EMFs. I'm wondering, what do you think about those, Steve, if you've had experience with those and stuff? Because I know part of what makes the sauna, the EMF shield in the sauna work is that distance, because you're not actually touching the shield.
Yeah.
So it's acting as an antenna and it's drawing away.
So this is a great opportunity. So Steve is a trained geobiologist that's basically a man-made EMF expert.
Yeah.
Where it comes from, what it does, all these things. So the question is about these EMF beanies and EMF underwear. Do they work? What do they do? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the technology is in its infancy, and I think there are some companies better than others, and I think that's where we've got to do our research, whether it comes to saunas like yourselves. And I'm a big stickler on making sure the people that I'm dealing with are people of character, and I think there's always going to be phonies out there. So that's my first sort of caveat that I set out when I'm dealing with clients and patients, is make sure that you research, make sure that you ask, make sure that you know who you're dealing with. Because if we use the wrong products and we don't research, it can cause more damage than good. It's like people who end up just taking a lot of vitamins without doing an assessment. They end up taking things that could damage them. It's the same with this process. Make sure that you research and you deal with companies that are reputable, that have been around. What I know from certain companies in the US and the UK, that they are beneficial. Some of the research and the products they've been using have really been helpful, especially the people that are electromagnetic sensitive. They felt a significant difference. I know that a lot of the biohackers wear this clothing in aeroplanes where the radiation is significant. I don't think there's any research or science or double-blinded studies on these products. Not that we always want to look at the research, but the empirical evidence is that a lot of people are saying there is benefit. So do I use them? I don't. Do I recommend them? I don't, because I believe that if we use things like photobiomodulation, we do a home assessment, that's far more beneficial. Making sure that you put your detox, protocols in place, making sure that you avoid these wearables, because people end up using the clothing and then have 13 Bluetooth devices and on their phone and on their laptop and sit in front of the TV. So it almost says, I'm protected. But you would need like a hazmat suit. You would need something to cover your face.
It almost gives you a false sense of security. So basically what you're saying is, it might have benefit, but it's probably lower priority than some of these really higher priority things like what is your lifestyle? What is your diet? What is your relationship to light? Are you doing sauna? Are you doing light therapy? Basic stuff.
And doing those home assessments, as you said.
If we were talking about like a money and time investment, these are much more important initially, definitely, than probably wearable EMF clothing.
And also, if you're going to travel in an aeroplane where we know the radiation, the ionizing radiation is significant, then, you know, that's possibly a good idea, because there you're just getting hit left, right, and center. But if you're going to, from day to day, I think that other strategies will move the needle, you know, best value for money.
Yeah, and if you bring up planes, you know, a huge source of toxicity in planes that most people are actually not aware of, but the most toxic aspect of the plane, in my opinion, is not the heightened radiation that you're exposed to, even though you are, because you're high up in the atmosphere. It's actually the fumes from the fuel, the air, the airplane, the jet fuel, like the air that you breathe inside the cabin is basically coming from the engine chamber, and it's known to be highly contaminated with, you know, fuel residues. Like, you would never stand behind an exhaust pipe, or if you ever have been behind a running vehicle and you smell that exhaust, that stuff is really toxic. And when you're in a plane for 2 hours flying across the country, you get quite a toxic exposure to petrochemical fumes, basically from the burning jet fuel.
That makes me think of all the flights going across the oceans.
That's something like Dr. Walls told me. That's why she pretty much never flies anymore, because of that. You know, she's one of those people who are EMF sensitive and just sensitive in general, and she says it takes a terrible toll on her.
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, the EMF clothing, this other stuff, this is really important, but there's some huge wins you can make, I think, and some much more straightforward approaches like what we've been talking about the whole day today.
Yeah, and it's time to close up here, but real quick, Q-Star ship. This is our photon, which is a targeted therapy device. So you can use it if you've got, you know, a complaint of an elbow that's bothering you, or as we were talking about earlier, if you use your phone a lot, you can do targeted therapy on, you know, that area.
But to answer your question, yeah, it's infrared and red. So it looks red, but it's only about, what, 5 or 10% red. It's mostly near infrared, which are the wavelengths just next to red that stimulate mitochondrial healing and all these, and 1,000 other amazing things. Yeah. So this is a near infrared centric light therapy device. Some red, mostly near infrared. And that's actually one of our signature products. So, and
it does put off heat, so you get heat therapy as well, but only in that targeted fashion.
So let's wrap up. Let's wrap up with that. We did pretty much a whole hour here. It's been killer. There's always so much more to talk about. But Steve, can you wrap up a little just right now, briefly, with your thoughts on the photon, your use of the photon for yourself, and your recommendations for your clients, or maybe your experience with your clients with the photon?
No, look, I've had some incredible results with people that have had any skin conditions, chronic pain, using the photon. Like Christal said, it's pretty targeted. I mean, I had a story. I saw the patient today who had a huge ulcer on his foot, the bottom of his foot, because he got injected by a practitioner and it got all septic, came and saw me. It wasn't improving. He got the photon, used some sunlight, used a bit of ozone cream, and it was incredible to see this result. So in terms of targeted, even putting on, you know, your gonads and your testicles, you know, there's some, you know, studies to show that it can improve testosterone. I think it's a useful portable device. I think it's inexpensive, you know, compared to other devices. So, you know, I'm a huge believer in the photon. I use it so often, and I think it's highly valuable to people that have got specific issues, lower backs, chronic pain, even cervicovagopathy, you know, vagal tone issues. Using the photon for your vagus nerve can be very, very beneficial to help, you know, improve your parasympathetic nervous system and downregulate your sympathetic nervous system. So I think it's multi-usage, and I'm grateful for this product because I think it's a really good part of your arsenal.
And one thing that we haven't mentioned yet is the environmental therapy and blue light stress mitigation. So when you're working at your office desk for long hours, it can really help minimize the eye strain that you receive, as well as
the screen fatigue. You know, it's just like having an electric fireplace next to you, like the real deal. It has subtle, obvious, and not so obvious optimizing effects on your mood, on on your outlook on things, the stress levels, the parasympathetic responses, and we're all real stressy and all jacked up all day long. So whatever we could do in the course of our day to keep our nervous system,
More
happy
relaxed.
and relaxed is awesome. So that's just another use of this. It's absolutely primarily used for spot therapy or targeted therapy, but you can have it next to you all day long for, we're still struggling to how to describe that, but we call it indoor environmental light therapy or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's making your environment wherever you are more like outdoors, more naturalistic.
Right. And in that case, if you're using it like that, like we are here, it's not pointed at either one of us. It's just generally, close by. And helping to counterbalance our studio lights that we have shining on us. So
beautiful.
And Bird Migo, I'm glad you got to join us also. It's always lovely.
Cool. So we're gonna wrap up now, but we talked about a ton of stuff. We're gonna put some links in here. Did we write down the name of that book that you mentioned?
Maybe you can email us, Dr. Stavs, about some of the stuff you mentioned, so that I can make sure and get it linked in properly.
And we'll link to Dr. Stavs as well. But could you we'd like to give you a little shout out, like where can people find you, where online and so forth, and your podcast?
Yeah, the podcast is the Made to Thrive show, and we stream on at least 8 platforms. Instagram channel is SteveStavs at ZA. So we're growing nicely on Instagram now. We've got a growing following there. We're on LinkedIn at SteveStavs. We're on Facebook at SteveStavs ZA and Made to Thrive ZA. And on Twitter at SteveStavs. So the community is growing. It's a wonderful environment to be in South Africa here and really be, hopefully, Africa's pro-biohack and health futurist. We did a presentation for Singularity University, and, the wearable health, health optimization space is going to be growing. And it's people like yourselves and partnerships that we've got that I really want to honor and respect you guys as we go out together in the future and change as many lives as we can and prevent people from getting sick. I think of my daughter, she knows about the sauna, the infrared sauna early. She's 5 years old. My son, who's 17, he comes home from a holiday. We just were down at the coast. He's like, the first thing I want to do is jump into the sauna. So it is about, treating people that are sick. Yes, it is about educating people that don't know about these modalities and really getting people into, adopting healthy lifestyle habits before they get sick, and to empower people to take accountability of their health and not rely on the sick care system that is out there, unfortunately.
And what better purpose could you ask for than healing the world one person at a time? That's beautiful. Hey, quick question here at the end. We actually don't recommend protective eyewear. The question is, do you have to wear protective eyewear? I don't use it. None of our customers really use it. You can use it, and if you use any kind of clothing or towel that can block directly the wavelengths of light, but you actually have a lot of benefit to getting photobiomodulation to the eyes. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of, you have the most energetically demanding cells in the body are the photoreceptor cells, and they're in the eyes, and near-infrared light helps water nutrient delivery be better. And there's so many other, too complicated to talk about right now, beneficial cellular effects to getting near-infrared light exposure in the eyes. Mm-hmm. Reduction in retinopathies, improvement of eyesight, slowing down the worsening of eyesight over time. There's so many things. And so since this is a low-powered, or I shouldn't say low-powered, but it's an ancestrally powered sort of level of photobiomodulation. It's very safe to use for the head and the eyes, as recommended. So, we'll DM you a little bit more on how to use it, but basically you're limiting it if you're using it on your head to 10 minutes per hour, but other parts of the body you can use it for a longer period of time. But in all cases, you're doing a little bit of therapy, and then you're kind of letting the body heal and respond, and then coming back. That's what hormetic stress therapy is. So
yeah, and you can find a lot of information on our website also, which is just sauna.space.
Yeah, so we'll link to the photon after this and when we post this live as well. But Steve, thank you so much. When are we going to see you in the US, bro?
Yeah, it's a good question that we have to look at as a family and see when you're going to come. My mentor's there in Fort Myers that I want to go and see now. He's been my mentor for 10 years, and there's people that I want to see. Obviously, But yeah, we gotta play it by ear and ensure that we don't sort of travel and cause extra stress on the family or myself. I've got a lot of I want to go to the Health Optimization Summit in the UK if it does happen. So we'll see how it goes. I'd love to come and spend some time with you and connect and sit around a meal and just celebrate life and be mindful of the relationships that we're forging as we help one another with our purposes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's all. Money can't even buy that.
No.
But
well, thank you so much, Dr. Stavs. Wonderful to see you again.
Thank you so much. Yeah, if you guys are looking for SaunaSpace, you want to check out SaunaSpace more, basically on the continent of Africa, I would totally direct you to talk to Steve. He gets everything. He understands it. You're really a force of nature down there. Not many people doing what you're doing down there. So for those of you who are looking into biohacking and health and natural wellness sort of in that region, SteveStavs and Made to Thrive, just such an incredible resource for you guys. So
absolutely, yeah.
Thank you so much, Steve. We'll keep you in the loop. We've got a lot of shows to come out, and we'll have you on again this year.
Brilliant.
And we'll get another update from you later. But yeah, we got to get back to work. We've got a lot to do here.
Yes, guys. Take care. Blessings. I appreciate you.
Thanks again, Steve. Take care. Everybody have a great week. We'll be back next Thursday, 11 a.m. Central.
Yep. And with, I believe we've got Joey DiStefano joining us next week.
We got Joe DiStefano. So another fun guest. Anyway, thanks, Steve. Have a wonderful day. Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too. Bye, guys.
Bye.